I'm going to say good afternoon, everybody, but actually it's good evening here in the UK. It's 10 p.m. Here in London, and it's great to see you at Microsoft Ignite, or wherever you are, Philly, Seattle, Jersey, who knows? I know there's someone in Connecticut, and I think there's probably someone in Kansas. He said he was joining, but who knows? So welcome to this session on intelligent video. We're going to talk about modern workspace intelligent video and how Crestron is really kind of leading the charge in this space, and really just kind of level set and bring people back to, a little bit of history in the VC and the conferencing market. And just really level set that. My name, again, is Neil Fluester. You can see that on the bottom of the display. If you have joined in the last 30 seconds, just quickly do me a favor, right click on my face and select the option that says fit to frame in Teams. And again, it will just make everything look beautiful because I've got no content. I've got no PowerPoint. This is not a presentation. There are no slides, but we're going to try and excite you and fire you up about this great topic through the art of storytelling. So a little bit different, and I'd love to get your feedback on this and let us know what you think of this kind of style of presentation. Please do hook me up on social media. I'm a very social guy, and I could love to have 30 new LinkedIn contacts, Twitter contacts, and people watching my YouTube channel. So do go and hook me up afterwards. And again, I've got 25 minutes with you here, but I'd love to, again, to talk longer to you about this. So that's all the housekeeping. Again, if you're joining, again, Jason, maybe you want to put right click on Neil's face and click fit to frame in the chat for anyone who's joining late. So let's go back to about 3 or 4 years ago. Who remembers these things? They were called meeting rooms. We used to go into these kind of long meeting room environments. And what I've done is I've given you the near end, what we call the near end, and I've given you the far end. So on the left-hand side of your screen, you can see that it's a long bowling room alley table. And generally what used to happen in the world of video conferencing was that, oh, wow, Jamie's sharing his camera. Look at that. Hello, Jamie. Are you supposed to do that? I don't know. I know Josh was sharing his camera. Matt, help me out here. There's people sharing cameras. I don't think they should be. So while we're getting rid of that and sorting out, thank you. Thank you, Matt. So yeah, on the left-hand side, this is was a traditional meeting room. We used to go into these spaces, and what companies would do, they would spend thousands and thousands of pounds or dollars on these great big, lovely teak tables. And what would always happen is the most important person would generally sit at the head of the table. That's where the CEO, the MD, the most important person, and the closer you got to the screen, probably the lesser you were in the organization. Not always true, but is it a sweeping generalization? And of course, when you're sitting far away, the far end, the person who's not in the meeting room, or the people who aren't in the meeting room, would on the right hand side be watching into the room from the video from their laptops, and they'd see this little postage stamp of the person. They can't really see them that well. The image quality isn't that great. But for the people in the room as well, the screen is all the way down the end of the table down there as well. So it's very hard for them to sit. So I in the room am not getting a great experience, and the people at the far end. And again, this is what it would look like. As I say, you would have this long kind of bowling room alley table. And again, it doesn't help me in the room, and it doesn't help you at the far end. And again, one of the big challenges is that then people have this kind of tennis effect. So what used to happen, let's say 4, 5, 6, 7, 10 years ago with traditional video conferencing, the codecs, you put in an H.323 or a SIP codec into your video conferencing meeting room. And what would generally happen is people would go into the meeting room, you can see them there, and they'd talk across the table. And then I would be the far end participant, the person not in the meeting room. And I go, I've got a question. And suddenly everyone looks around at me, and I'm a bit like a deer or a rabbit in the headlights, because as you can see there, they're all just staring at me, and I'm like, oh, hang on a minute, I've got a question. What are we having for lunch today? What are we doing? And then engagement. Yes, Neil, that's very good. Thank you for your input. That's brilliant. And then they go back to talking across the table again. And that's a challenge because it's very hard for me to both interject into the meeting room if they're not looking at me. And again, you get this kind of challenging view. So they're not looking at me. Charlie up there on the screen, he's sort of sitting at home there, and he's got his Peloton behind him, and it's hard for him to kind of break into the room because I'm chatting to the person across the table from me, and then he can't break into the conversation. It's very hard for him to interject into the conversation. Again, when he does, then this happens, and whoa, it's not really kind of engaging. It's not really balanced from both the people in the room and the people at the far end, because again, the person at the far end, Charlie, gets a lovely shot of the side of people's faces when they're not engaging with him, when they're not looking at him. So it doesn't really work. It's not really, I'm going to use this word, and I do apologize for using this word. It's not really equitable. And you've probably heard that word so much over the last kind of 6 months. It's probably the most overused term when it comes to UC and conferencing at the moment. The idea that we want to create an equitable experience, the idea that both me at home, the person that didn't come into the office today, gets as good an experience or an equal experience as Dave and Sheila and Claire and Amanda and Rachel, who are sitting in the room, that we're all getting an equal or equitable experience of the meeting. And that's the challenge. Now, we've been trying to solve this idea in the video conferencing world, and I've been at many different video conferencing manufacturers, and we've come up with lots of amazing ideas to solve this. Who remembers these things? They were called Immersive Telepresence. The idea was great back in the late early 2000s. What we did is we had this great idea of putting three massive, great big tellies in a dedicated meeting room. And then having the far end participants in full life size representation on the screens, and that was the idea. And it was great for the people at the far end, because I could look them in the eye and I could say, yes, we should, close the deal, make the deal, and I was having this great eye contact with them at the remote end. And there's questions coming in. We'll cut to questions in a second. Hang on a second. So it was great for the far end, but the problem is that everyone sat in a row. So you got a fantastic or equitable or an equal experience to the people who weren't in the room, but you broke the experience to the people in the room. Again, if I wanted to talk to the person next to me, I have to sort of turn around. Yes, what did you think of that? No, I think that was a rubbish idea. What are we having for lunch? It's coming in a minute. There's this kind of tennis match in the room. So I got a fantastic experience to the people who aren't in the room. But again, my in-room experience becomes broken. So again, trying to solve both ends of the puzzle, both ends of the story. I'll just take a quick pause. I do want to have your questions. I'd love to have your interactions. I've got Jason in the chat. I should have said this back at the beginning. I've got Jason in the chat who is going to help me out with questions. I will bring them up and see. So if you do have questions, if you do want to engage, please put them in the chat. I did see a raised hand there. So again, do sir or madam, put your questions in the chat and we'll kind of get to them. So whilst this was all going, whilst we were trying to kind of solve these problems back in the late 2000s, 2010, these immersive kind of systems were coming out, and again, trying to solve them. There was even, and I don't have a picture of it, there was even this kind of idea of putting this kind of weird thing in the middle of the meeting room. So get away with your meeting room table and put this kind of thing in the meeting room with 4 screens around it, and this kind of camera that kind of popped up. And it was kind of this kind of campfire you kind of sat around. And it was a great idea, great concept of a solution. Yes, you're right, Joel. Yes, absolutely, that product, fantastic, top of the class for you. Again, a great idea, but at that time, back in 2014, 15, if you went into a customer and said, "Hey, that lovely meeting room, boardroom table, that lovely table here that you spent thousands of dollars, throw that away, bin it, get rid of it." Stick this thing in the middle of the room with these small 27-inch monitors, and we're going to put couches around it, and that's how we're going to have boardroom meetings moving forward. People thought you were smoking something crazy, and it didn't really catch on. But again, a great idea. Now, in the meantime, whilst all this was going on, the amazing, brilliant people at Microsoft were beavering away. Now, again, hands up, who can go all the way back to LCS and OCS on this? It was exciting times. It was like the Wild West. But again, meanwhile, as I say, while all us video conferencing geeks and nerds were doing 323 and SIP and immersive telepresence and HD and all this great stuff, what Microsoft were doing was quietly in the background, fettling and honing these these platforms and this application. Originally, it was LCS, then OCS, and MOC, as it was called, the Microsoft Office Communicator, and then Link 2010, Link 2013, and then obviously in 2013, there was the acquisition of Skype. It was almost like a verb. Let's do a Skype together. You used it at home. Your mum used it. Your grandma used it, and you did a Skype call with them. And then obviously Skype for Business. You're feeling really old. Oh, don't feel old. No, it's coming. We're going to bring you back to the modern day soon. Don't you worry. But I think it was really interesting. And again, we talk about this a lot, that we had a lot of customers when Teams came out in sort of 2018, about that size, 17, 18. A lot of customers that said, well, we've got Skype for Business on premise, and it's good, and this newfangled Teams thing is all in the cloud. We're not ready for the cloud yet. We're not ready for Teams yet. We're on a journey to Teams. We'll get there in year, 18 months, and we'll go to Teams, but at the moment we'll stick with Skype for Business, and we've got these kind of H.323 systems that and SIP systems that interop with Skype for Business. There were some from the video conferencing vendors out there, so I'm trying to read the chat and do the presentation. It's so much fun. There was all these, again, video interop platforms, and again, Skype was predominantly a SIP-based platform, so it's quite easy for video conferencing devices to connect into it, whereas Teams kind of completely flipped the world on its head. One other thing that flipped the world on its head was that this happened. And then this happened. We went from the boardroom to the bedroom. The kitchen became the new meeting room, and we were all sent home from school, from work, from wherever we were, to try and hunker down and carry on our work in this kind of environment. And all those customers that said, well, we're going to go to Teams, we're on a journey to Teams, we'll get there in 18 months, suddenly had to accelerate that journey to Teams to about 18 days, or even 18 hours in some cases. The stories that we heard through that time, through 2019, was just bonkers. Again, these customers have said, yeah, we'll get there in a couple of years. Suddenly, couldn't have hundreds of thousands of people going for a VPN connection to a Skype server that was sitting in their back end data center. They needed the cloud. They needed people with their home internet and their home broadband to meet in the middle and to be able to continue to work. And again, Teams was an absolutely fantastic solution for that. And look at this experience that we've got here. We've got Charlie. I'll get my fingers wrong. Charlie up there at the top. He's sitting in the UK. We've got Jason. Oh, who's this? Wow, USA CHIW room apartment basement. Whose apartment basement is that, sir? You're going to find the video mute now. There he goes. Fantastic. And we've got Jason down the bottom, who is actually in Seattle, but that's obviously a recording. But look at the experience we've got. We're all got the same experience. We've got equity. We've got equality. Everyone gets the same experience. We've not got the long bowling room alley, and we've not got the tennis match of people looking at the screen, looking at the people back to them. I'm seeing the same view as Charlie's seeing, and Jason's seeing the same view that I'm seeing and Charlie's seeing. And we're all getting this fantastic, great experience of everyone else, because we're all sat at home, we're all on our laptops, and we're all looking at a camera, as a one-to-one person in the meeting room. There's also, other great devices that, are coming out. Teams display, the idea that you can have a dedicated video device at home, offload the audio and the video processing from your laptop and have these dedicated Teams devices or Teams displays, the great new Teams display software that we've got now. So what happened with the pandemic, apart from Boris Johnson losing power and Liz Truss coming in, and Mr. Trump moving on, and new presidents and prime ministers coming in and leaving and coming in, is that users got the taste of, say, equality. Now, what happens when we go back to a meeting? What happens when we go back to an office? Is that we need to try and emulate this experience here, but when we've got a mix, a hybrid, again, another grossly overused term, another term that says, I want to sometimes be in the office, sometimes be at home. Dave's at home, Bob's in the office, Rachel's at home, and Charlie's in a coffee shop. But we want to try and get them all the same experience. Now, that's the backstory. That's the history. Again, it's fantastic in the chat. There's obviously some fantastic veterans who, I say apologies, are all now feeling a little bit old because they remember ITP and can go back to old view stations and old Tamberg edges and all the rest of it. If anyone wants to go see who can go back the furthest on what the oldest video conferencing system they worked on, please do put that in the chat and we'll have some fun with that. But I want to just kind of level set with regards to where we are with cameras. This is, of course, a conversation about intelligent video, and that's where we're kind of going to go next. So I want to talk about how we improve remote engagement. How do we give you, the far end, a better experience, whether you are 5 people in a meeting room, whether you are 1 person in a coffee shop, or like me, 10 o'clock in the evening, sitting in their home office, and try and give you a better experience. So cameras and video manufacturers like Crestron and others have worked on kind of what we call production rules or artificial intelligence and machine learning and things like this to try and give a kind of video production, a TV production style experience when using the cameras, because what we don't want the users to do is to come into a meeting room and have to think. When a user has to think, bad things happen. Your sales people, your marketing people, your finance people, they're going into a meeting to have their HR, their marketing, their finance meeting. They're not going in to be a video expert or a video producer or a techie per se. They're going in to have their quarterly marketing update or their HR meeting or whatever it might be. So we want them to go in and concentrate on their meeting, not the technology. So there's also technology on the cameras that try and help this. The first one is called group framing. Now, again, I'm trying to give a near end and far end experience of this for everybody on the call. So group framing is brilliant. It's kind of the kind of baseline. It's the one up from doing nothing. So you can see here on the left hand side, Charlie and I sitting in this meeting room. It's got 5 chairs. And if we did nothing, this is the view that people will get. But what group framing does is it looks for the faces. It uses facial recognition, uses an element of artificial intelligence, and it will then cut out the dead space. Reach out the laptop then. It cuts out the dead space on the kind of left and the right so that you get a kind of fit to frame. This is great for kind of meeting rooms where you've got, say, 2 people at 9 o'clock, you've got 5 people at 11 o'clock, and 20 people at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, because rather than having to go preset 1, preset 2, preset 3, which people will never do, and if they even do it, then they'll forget to reset it back. So what you'll then have is 20 people in the room, but you'll only see 2 of them because all the rest of them are out of camera shot. So group framing is great in the fact that it can kind of adapt to the different styles of meetings and the different number of people. The next kind of level up from that is what's called speaker tracking. And this is where when Charlie goes to talk, the camera will frame in on Charlie. And then as I go to talk, the camera will frame in on me. And then as Charlie talks, you get Charlie. As if I talk, you get me. And you get this kind of ping pong between Charlie and I. And what always happens when we've done, demos or, people have looked at these kind of speaker tracking or participant tracking cameras, is that they'll get the unit out of the box and they'll go, look at me, look at me, look at me, look at me. Look, it's not tracking to me. Look at me. No, it's still got Charlie. No, why is it not looking at me? And then suddenly it will switch to me and I'll go, oh, okay, now it's working. And then someone else will go, look at me, look at me. And it will, there's a delay. There's an inherent delay because as a far end participant, as the remote participant, you don't want this kind of constant strobing between Charlie and I as I lean back on my chair or make a noise or shuffle some paper. You don't want this constant strobing because the people at the far end will just get seasick. It's not a great experience. It is good in some cases, again, for certain kinds of meeting rooms, but you almost do have to be very polite in meetings. And generally, we're not that polite in meetings. People will talk over each other. People will get heated. I remember going to do demos of speaker tracking cameras in places like Italy, and they said, "Well, we just, this doesn't work. We just talk over each other. Who's it going to track? How do you know which person it's going to track in the meeting room?" I'm sure it's not just Italians. I'm sure there's other people that talk over it. But it was a great example of, it's you've got to be very polite. You've got to pass the conversation on. Again, speaker tracking has its place, but it's a real challenge. Now, the new kid on the block is what's called compositing. Now, there's lots of fluffy names for this, and I won't go through them because they're all specific to manufacturers, but I'm sure you've seen this kind of idea. So it's a bit like group framing. We've cut out the dead space, but with group framing, you still get the middle chair between Charlie and I. And what compositing does is it sort of cuts out Charlie from the picture, it cuts out me, and then it stitches us back together again. So it cuts out all the dead space, and you get this view of Charlie and I as a far end participant. So you can actually see both of us on the screen. And again, if there was 4 or 5 people in the meeting room, it can cut us all out and stitch us together and get rid of those dead chairs and get rid of those dead spaces, which is really great. And again, gives you a much better experience for the far end. The problem with this kind of compositing is exactly in all of these kind of environments that I showed you. Now, in all of these demonstrations, we're all looking at the camera. We're all sitting in that row again. We're all sitting like in an immersive telepresence. And it's great for you at the far end. But actually, in a traditional bowling room meeting room, what you'll actually get is this. You'll still get that side of the shot, and you'll actually just get 6 composited views of the side of people's faces until they then turn around to look at the screen. So either you need to turn your meeting room around and have it on the long, have it on the landscape rather than on the portrait. Or, as I say, you have to put up with the fact that, say, people are going to get the side view of people's ears, and again, that's not a great kind of experience in there. Again, people want to still have that long bowling room alley experience, and this can be, as I say, a real challenge. It's a great solution. The other challenge we have, obviously, in a Teams or other collaboration tools, you're kind of in segments. So you've suddenly now got a 2-person segment in a 1-person space. You've got, Bob at home in a single square. You've got Dave at home in a single square, and then suddenly in one square you've got 6 people, which then they're all sort of squidged up and squashed up, which isn't really that great. The last one I just wanted to talk about is called real-time tracking. Now, this is great. Matt was talking earlier on about classrooms and does a lot of education. This is, again, a fantastic production rule, a fantastic intelligent camera rule, where you've got like a virtual camera person that's actually sort of panning and zooming around the room as the lecturer, the teacher, the trainer is moving around the room. And again, it uses things like facial recognition. It uses things like sound source localization to say, okay, where are you talking? Where are you moving? Where are you looking? And it will actually frame you as it moves around. Generally, it does this on a sensor, but in some cases, in some of the cameras, you can do this using, optical and pan, tilt, and zoom motors. Now, those are the kind of 4 main production rules that we have available to us in the world of kind of intelligent cameras. But the biggest problem with all of this is it's an or. Now, you can't have your cake and eat it with all of these solutions. So generally what happens is you'll get your lovely shiny new camera from one of our competitors out there in the marketplace that will do group framing or speaker tracking or compositing or even presenter tracking. And you get it out of the box and you go, okay, well, for the 9 o'clock meeting, I want it to be group frame, but for the 11 o'clock meeting, I want it to be speaker tracked. And then I want to do some compositing because, we've got some dead space. And then we're going to use the room as a training room in the afternoon. So I then want to do some presenter tracking. But the problem is that on all of the smart camera bars and solutions out there in the market today, it is an or. You get it out the box, you go into the admin interface and you say group framing. And it is a group framing bar. If you want to then change it to a compositing solution or a presenter tracking solution, you have to go into the admin interface and you have to go and select the compositing or select the speaker tracking option. And then it's a speaker tracking camera. And again, as I talked about earlier, what we don't want to do is for users to have to think. We don't want to have to think, okay, this is a training meeting. I need to go into the admin interface. I need to log in. I need to go into the settings and change it from group framing to speaker tracking, because it doesn't work. And even if they do that, they'll forget and it won't get changed back, and then it doesn't quite work. So what we want to do is to try and, again, add some more intelligence into this and not make it an or. We want to make it an and. We want the camera to go, okay, I can see that someone stood up in a zone in an area at the front of the room and is moving around. I'll track them in real time. I want to be able to see people as they're looking across the table at each other and give the far end a speaker tracked view without them looking at the screen. I want to be able to give the far end and bring the far end into the room and make them omnipresent, not just on a wall at the outside. I'll do it that side. I don't want to put them on the wall at the end of a long table. I want to put them all the way around the room, so they're always in my eye line, always in my sight line. Now, some of you probably know where I'm going with this now. I I'll wrap this up and then I'll take it to Simon, and hopefully we should have some time for a couple of questions at the end if we want to. Is again, this isn't all someone's coming off video. Who are you, sir? That's Daniel. Hello, Daniel. Could you just mute your camera for us, Daniel, and then we'll come to you in the end. Thank you, sir. Obviously, Microsoft has done a fantastic job, again, trying to enhance and the work through lockdown, the velocity of features that Microsoft have done through lockdown is amazing. I've not seen any really manufacturer that have brought out the number of enhancements to an application like Microsoft have done with Teams. And front row is now again the latest incarnation of all that kind of feature velocity, and again trying to make the experience better, not just for the far end but for the people in the room. The idea that you can have these real people with like name tags taken from AD, have the chat on the screen, have the content on the screen, have our actions on the screen, and get this really amazing inclusive and equitable experience. And again, that really helps us. But on the back end of that, we still need to have these intelligent cameras to feed into this fantastic layout that Microsoft are providing us with front row. So what we're doing at Crestron is we're trying to enhance and we're trying to create a new kind of experience using multiple cameras around the room. We made an acquisition earlier this year. You may know about it, called One Beyond. And this is a range of intelligent cameras, not digital cameras, but optical cameras in many ways. So the ability to go up to 12 times optical zoom and pan, tilt, and zoom. But one of the amazing elements of the One Beyond, or the now Crestron intelligent camera solution, is the ability to put multiple cameras around the room. And this is one of the things, or one of the environments and one of the experiences that we're working on, and really changing the conversation and changing the game with regards to intelligent video, meeting equality, and the modern workplace for our customers. Here's a traditional meeting room, that long bowling room alley table. In this case, it's a U-shaped table. But in this environment, what we've done is we've put cameras around 3 of the walls. We've put cameras that are looking at every area of the room, 360 degrees, looking from the outside into the room. So as I'm talking to the participant in the room across the table, there's a camera looking straight at me. And as they're looking at me in the room, there's a camera looking straight at them. But moreover, so again, the far end participant is getting an actual speaker tracked or a front view image of me, the person in the room. But better than that, we're improving the remote experience. Again, remember, again, it's not just about the in-room experience, it's about the both ends of the conversation. What we do in Sightline, and the concept of this, is that we want to, again, bring the far end into the meeting room. So not only is there cameras all around the room, but there's the remote participants and the content displayed omnipresent 360 degrees around the room. So again, as I'm looking across the table, I'm not now looking to the far end and looking back across the table, looking at the far end and back across the table. I see the far end above the person's head. If the far end wants to interject, ask a question, they just raise their hand naturally, or just make a body movement. I go, oh, sorry, you've got a question there, and we're not all suddenly looking round at them. We've not got this experience of everybody looking round at you. Everyone is just naturally just sitting in the room and talking amongst each other and having their meeting. It's an amazing concept, and again, we're bringing this to market and bringing this into Microsoft Teams in the very near future. I'm very excited about this. As I say, this is not an or, this is an and. If someone stands at the front, you'll get speaker tracking. If someone talks, you'll get presenter tracking. If someone talks, you'll get speaker tracking. If no one's talking, it'll go to group framing. The ability to make these decisions and take it one stage further, and also bring the remote participant into the conversation, is really unique. And again, something that we at Crestron are really, really championing to enhance this intelligent video. I'm also almost bang on time, but I wanted to say, just open it up. I've had 30 minutes. It's not enough. It's literally a scratch on the surface, but I'd love for all of you to continue the conversation with us at Crestron and with me. Please do hook me up on LinkedIn, on Twitter, A, because I just need more followers, but B, because again, I'd love to get your feedback, not only on the presentation. What did you think? No slides, a different way of doing things. What did you think of the presentation? If you liked it, tell everybody about it. Go on LinkedIn and say Neil's down presentation at Ignite was blooming amazing. And it was brilliant that he stayed up till 10 o'clock at night in the UK and presented to us around the world. If you didn't like it, then just let me know privately and I'll try and change it. Always open to ideas. And just thank you for your time. Ignite sounds amazing. I'm sorry I'm not there in person, but it's great to meet you all. And hopefully you found that useful, and you'd love to find out some more information about our intelligent camera solutions at Crestron. And I guess have a nice day, I think is the phrase. So thank you ever so much.